everybody to Workplace Pride here in the room of Workplace Pride office. Welcome everybody online who is following the Purple Friday co-production. It's a co-production of Workplace Pride and Student Pride Netherlands. And I'm here also with my co-moderator, Chantal van der Putten, who's right there and will co-moderate the whole session with me. For practical reasons, if you have any questions, please put them not in the chat, in the Q&A. For those people who are online, you can just raise your hands here. It's in a packed room, by the way. And we have Guy. Guy is our artist, guide, who's our artist. And you can see he will actually make a drawing, kind of capturing. Oh, there
he is. You can see him.
Yes, yes. Very good.
Oh, very good. Yes. Hi,
and
Guy.
you can monitor the progress right there to see how it's going, and he will finish, I think, a little bit after this session with a complete drawing, but it will capture everything here. So for the academics among us, it's like a graphical abstract. So I look forward to that one.
Thank you.
Good. Well, let me introduce the panelists. I'm sitting right next to Riona Jansen, who's from pronouns are she and her. My pronouns are he and him, by the way. And Riona, you're a board member of Queer Section. What are your activities?
We have multiple activities ranging from, your casual Thursday afternoon drinks at the local bar to more educational events where we discuss queer topics to, get your opinion out there. We have crazy parties, of course, students like that. And we also host bigger educational activities at Saxion for all the teachers and students of the school who feel like they might have something about integration. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. And how many members are there?
Right now, we're on our way to 70 members. So we're just over 60 members on our way to 70 members. And we hope next year, because this is our first year, full year.
Yeah.
So we hope next year we can grow even more.
Yeah. Great, wonderful. And then we have Magiel Keestra, who's the Central Diversity Officer at the University of Amsterdam and also a philosophy professor. So tell us a little bit more. Are there more diversity officers? Why are you the central one?
Right, I'm wondering myself. Yes, every faculty has its own faculty diversity officer, and I am located in a central unit of the university in the Maagdenhuis, quite close by. Step in for a coffee anytime, and I am trying to develop policy advice for the board or the different departments on, for instance, different topics related to gender, including the use of inclusive language, gender facilities. I am also supporting, or my office is supporting, our UvA Pride network at this time. At the Oude Manhuispoort, there's a research meeting a whole day going on, supported by us. So we're trying to do different things, and at the faculty diversity officers are pushing these agendas at the local level.
Great. It sounds like a whole network. So how many diversity officers are all together?
At
UvA,
you mean? Right. So we've got seven departments. So it has its own really part-time faculty diversity officer. They typically work one day, and then there's a central diversity officer. That's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can share this one with 7. I think that's easier for us.
Okay. Seven de Boer, okay, welcome as well. Your pronouns are they and them, and you're a board member of Student Pride Netherlands, and you're also now a student at the University of Amsterdam, and before you were at the Hogeschool. So great. Tell us a little bit more of the activities of Student Pride Netherlands. Nederlands, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mainly do informative things when there's when there's questions, when there's questions about the diversity, inclusivity, gender, when there's a need for more education, when there's need for lectures, workshops, anything. I usually just I do that. I facilitate that.
Great. Excellent. Welcome. And then over to Chantal. Maybe you can kind of take it away on Purple Friday. What is it all about?
Yes,
why are we here?
I had to say that my pronouns are she and her. I think I forgot. But no, then you know. My first question is what means Purple Friday to you? And who wants to be the first? Yes.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Purple Friday to me is a moment where everyone in and outside of the community can show their support, and it can show that it is accepted to be who you are and who you want to be. I think it's a great way for organizations and schools as well to show that this is something that we stand by, that we support, especially when it comes from the organization. And it's just a great way to express in a low-key way that it's good, that everything's good. Yeah.
And today at the University of Amsterdam, so it's maybe for both of you on the couch, what are the Purple Friday activities, apart from participating in this great webinar?
I'm not that into the loop of what's going around at the UvA yet, so I think I have to pass it on to you.
Magiel.
Right. So there may be local activities going on, but as mentioned centrally, we've shed some light on this in our newsletter, a monthly newsletter. As mentioned, we're supporting the research day. And well, I think for the rest, we are not having concrete activities like events right now, but I may overlook student activities about which I don't know anything.
Great. And Riona, at Saxion, what are you doing apart from the trip to Amsterdam?
Saxion has a few different locations, and I know that in Saxion Enschede they have a big event today in the team of Purple Friday. But for example, for Saxion Deventer, there's not something like a central event for the whole school. They did have an congress last Wednesday, and they also shed some light on Purple Friday, but there's no specific attention for the day, not this year at least. And we hope that with our study association, maybe for the years to come, we could, mean something in helping organizing something, because it would mean a lot, I think, to students when the school really, takes the time to shed light on this. It brings people together. It shows your support. It shows the connection we all have as humans and students with each other. So yeah, we hope next year something big could happen.
Yesterday we spoke to each other, and you told me some critical things, and we like to have a happy meeting, of course. But I think it's also good to tell something about that. So.
Sure. I do notice that within our community, our student association, our members are kind of critical about Purple Friday, because sometimes it kind of feels like rainbow washing. It's like companies or schools, they present themselves as very accepting, very including, very diverse. But then when Purple Friday passes, all that enthusiasm about diversity and inclusion just passes. You see the same kind of thing happening with, Pride Month in June. A lot of companies put like rainbow flags on everything. And then when June is over, it's not in the picture anymore. So yeah, for our students, there are a lot of people who are kind of skeptical, critical about Purple Friday. Yeah, cynical, exactly. But still, you could always grab the moment and use it for the better. So maybe with Queer, our students study association, we could do that.
And what do you think about that, Stefan?
Well, it's an opinion that I wholeheartedly share. I think it came up in our conversation as well. Yeah. I think generally Purple Friday is filled with good intentions, but it's not always more than that. And I think there's a lot of potential there to do more with Purple Friday and make it so that it doesn't feel like rainbow washing or pink washing, and actually do something that contributes to the community to actually feeling safe. I share that.
And what could we do better at the universities and at the University of Applied Science? If it's not a one day, Purple Friday event.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of things that a lot of small things that could improve the overall well-being, making more places accessible, making sure that it is explicitly stated that it is accepted, and it's also enforced in a way that there's still a lot of discrimination going around. There's still a lot of mostly by other students, that is, but sometimes also by teachers who just don't know enough about it. So I think having like a central policy in place that makes it so that teachers also should know and be aware and know how to deal with people of different genders or sexuality so that they won't feel discriminated. I think that's very important. Having inclusive bathrooms, not all of them, of course, but I think more than there are now, more than none, more than a little bit. There's a lot of small things. I'm not saying like immediate, huge, big steps are necessary, but small steps in the right directions. Yeah.
Michiel, maybe, what are you doing in a more structured way? I heard the gender-neutral toilets were mentioned.
Right.
Always a hot topic.
Yeah. Maybe if I can very briefly step back, I think I mentioned that in our conversation just this week. The different university papers like Folia at our university, Ad Valvas at the Free University, they together did a kind of an inventory. What are the different universities doing? How are the central diversity or chief diversity officers operating? What kind of obstacles are they facing? And they singled out
in the area of diversity and inclusion, right?
Right. And they singled out 4 themes that apparently are receiving the most pushback. One is decolonization. The second one is like that diversity apparently is more than just pushing for more white women to be hired, so intersectionality, I think. And then the third and fourth both focus on gender. One is the inclusive speech, so gender pronouns, gender registration, etc. And the fourth topic, gender-neutral bathrooms. So these topics are most contentious, and indeed in my conversations also with staff, with teachers, sometimes also students are like, do we need all of that? So I think there's really, as you also mentioned, and I think Riona as well, we really have to do a lot of educating, a lot of explaining, while at the same time trying like also to influence policy, to get this more included in like how we train our teachers to be sensitive to these issues, to talk to facility services like, how can we maybe accommodate the desire to have also a gender neutral toilet? So there's a lot of small things that I'm also engaged in these conversations, trying together to make the university as a whole much more accessible.
And is there tension between, in a way, doing the right things and doing all these trainings and teaching and education, but at the same time, there's also academic freedom at university? How do you kind of resolve that?
Right. So, having a lot of conversations and like in panels, etc., mentioning this, but at the same time, in our, for instance, our teaching and learning center, which provides courses to our teachers, to discuss how these issues can be included in what is called the BKO, so Basic Qualification for Education, so to make it like mainstream. And that requires pushing, massaging, talking to the board, and then getting back, etc.
Great. Yeah, it's always, if I were a journalist, I would ask even further. So what is the percentage of courses which are, kind of included? How many teachers and professors have been kind of trained already? But
right. Thanks. Yeah.
You get the microphone back.
So this BKO, this qualification course, we are pushing for, and they're really willing to include these topics, but then also it has to be intersectional. So we're also talking about cultural diversity, etc. But that will be implemented, I'm sure, for the rest. So during this academic year, we're discussing, and after that, I think it will really be implemented there. So there's a lot of goodwill there. But when it comes, for instance, to teachers being at unease, I think that what you also notice, like when issues are raising in class, and am I no longer allowed to say this, or why should I use these pronouns? Yeah. That requires another kind of like, how can we equip our teachers to solve this? Yeah.
And I think it's most of the trainings that are given are voluntary. So if
No,
Well,
basic
uh,
one is really.
at the UvA it's different, then
Yeah.
that's great.
It's mandatory.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's different at UvA, so they're obligatory, the basic one.
I think that also at other universities, etc., this basic qualification course is really mandatory for every new staff member. So sitting staff members may not be forced to do this, but new do.
All right, because I've experienced, especially my experience at the HVA was also that there's like this basic course that everyone gets in diversity, but that's very general, and it touches all different kinds of diversity, and I think it maybe skims on some topics. And from the schools that I've worked with within Student Pride, when we gave workshops or something, it's usually just the teachers that were like, "Oh, I'm interested in that. I want to learn more. I want to do more." But it's really hard to
Preaching to the converted.
yeah,
already.
it's hard to like intrinsically or to make sure that the teachers who are kind of maybe opposed to that are also intrinsically motivated to want to learn, to want to do better. And it's hard to get over that initial, what's the word? Weerstand. Pushback. Yeah. Resistance. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious about your, I'm curious about your opinion and your ideas about this.
Well, we are also thinking about doing something with the BKO registration to make sure this is something included in every teacher's skill set, and every teacher gets taught about these kind of topics. But we face the same problems at Saxion Deventer. Most of the time, these kinds of events or workshops are voluntary. So all the people that come there are already willing to learn, and it's about reaching those who have the pushback, who have an adverse about inclusivity or diversity. It's about reaching them, and it's kind of hard. We have the same problem at Saxion, I think, and it's something we struggle with. How are we gonna shape this and make sure we reach all those people, to make sure all the teachers know about this, and in that way all the students get to experience the profits of it. So yeah, I think it's very hard, and it's also a big question, because I think it runs deeper than just, oh, you want to get educated or not. It's about personal values. It's about everything or surrounding it, and it's very hard. You don't want to force it onto people, but you also want to make sure you kind of force it on people, so there's a fine line, and I think it's it's a hard thing to get an answer on.
Can I? Yeah. So thanks. So it's like like a press conference, right? Yeah. No. So my suggestion would be to also get connected to the student council, maybe the works council, to really engage with the wider networks. Because what I've learned, so I've been in this position since only last February, but there's really a lot of explaining to do. But once you do that, typically there's really an interest, like, hey, yes, this is something we haven't thought about it, and maybe we should include it. And once they include it in their conversation with the management, etc., you get some extra help there.
I think it's also very important to bring it in the right way. If you bring it and it sounds like an accusation, like you're not doing it right, it needs to be brought up in a way where you realize, oh, maybe I can do better, or maybe I can do more, or I want to do more, instead of you're doing it wrong and you need to change, because that gets a lot of pushback. And I think that's only natural. It's hard, but I think it's very important to stay open to the other side as well, and listen to what their concerns are, and see if maybe there's a middle ground that you can find. And it's there should be some wiggle room somewhere there, and I think it's good if we try to find it.
I also think it's not only about the teachers and how they present their class. It's also about the study material they get supplied. For example, we have a lot of standardized formats for PowerPoint presentations, and in all those presentations is always he or she or man or woman. It's never gender neutral. Or in some assignments, when you're writing, a critical report or something, they obligate you to be gendered. For example, I wrote a report and I used they, them in almost every sentence. I thought I'm not going to do he or she. I don't know what to choose. I'll just use them. And then my teacher said something to me about it, like, oh, this doesn't come off professional. Maybe you should do her or him. And I was like, why is it not okay to do it like in a gender neutral way? So I think it's not only the teachers, but also the study materials, the tests, the criteria for, tests or whatever. I think it's also about that, maybe
Definitely.
looking if we can change that, because when a teacher gets supplied a PowerPoint presentation and they use they, them in the PowerPoint presentation, it's also maybe a little bit easier for a teacher to continue the same language in their class. So yeah, I think that's also a big step to take or to look at.
It's also something I've noticed now that I've started studying at the UvA, where, a big part is also participating in studies. I've filled out multiple questionnaires already. And usually the starting question is, what is your gender? But then you have male or female. And I think coincidentally, 2 days ago, I got a questionnaire where the first question was, what is your birth sex? And then the second one was, how do you identify? And I thought to myself, and I thought that this sounds inclusive, but why do you need to know my birth sex? Especially if it's a psychological thing. I know it's easier to compare your results to older studies, which only use male and female, but there's no need for you to know. And I'm very, sadly, very skeptical that you're going to use the question about how I identify in the study or in the results. I think that's just, it feels like obligatory diversity points. So I think there's, a lot of, it could be a lot more inclusive in that way as well. Yeah.
Are there any questions from anybody here in our WorkplacePride studio? I see people.
Don't be shy. Yeah, you can come. Then they can see you on the.
Yes.
Yeah.
You must come to the microphone.
Yeah, I have 2 questions for you. First would be, do you also occasionally team up with various institutions from a student perspective? And the second being, you're now representing universities, also the hogeschool. And do you know whether also similar initiatives are taking place with the ROC's, regionale opleidingscentrums? Because in the end, but that's only a perception I have, or an assumption I should say, is that perhaps at universities and hogescholen, it is perhaps slightly easier. There's more tolerance to the topic than at other educational levels. So I was just wondering about it.
Yes, go.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think something that illustrates this is Saxion was going to sign the covenant put up by WorkplacePride. They did this in Enschede with Saxion Enschede and University of Twente. And now they wanted to do it for Saxion Deventer, Saxion Apeldoorn, ROC Aventus, and the police academy there. But what you notice is that every school starts at a different starting position, and with our students study association, we were invited to one of their meetings, and we were talking about this, and then they were saying, like, on the hogeschool, acceptance is already a few steps ahead than at ROC. So they had a lot of issues getting the covenant ready because all the schools had a different starting position. For example, in Saxion, the hogeschool, of course, there's still queerphobia. It happens everywhere. But for ROC Aventus, when they hang up a pride flag, it gets torn down or burned or whatever. And that's not some problem that we don't have. For us, it's more, I guess, microaggression at the school. And in ROC, it's more microaggression, as to speak. So I think it's a very valid question because it's hard. For us, we are looking forward to see if there's any opportunity for us to work together with ROC Aventus, since also in Deventer, ROC and Saxion just sit right next to each other. So it would be nice to maybe be a study association for both the schools, but it's still kind of hard because indeed the acceptance there, in this case, in our region, there's a lot of difference in it. And as of teaming up, we haven't teamed up yet, but we've been very new. We've been official since 1st of September. So we're also getting everything on the rails and then looking forward to see if there's any more connections we could make.
Will you say something about this?
I mean, as for my duties within Student Pride, I want to say, yeah, let's do that. Speaking from me as a student, both from used to be at the HVA and now also at the UvA, I think it's there's a lot of opportunities to team up with various different instances. We were talking about it a little while ago as well. I think that a lot of universities and schools are all you've said this before very, very well, trying to invent the wheel all by themselves. And I think it's very lucrative if we see if we can look at each other and we can learn from each other and we can help each other with that. And I think that'll make us grow even quicker, make us stronger. Yeah.
And Michiel, how's it here in Amsterdam? Can you join up with the University of Applied Science or the
right, so,
ROCs?
yeah.
I don't know how to say that in English, but yeah.
So,
the rock.
So I think at first it's good to realize that UvA itself is almost like an archipelago. So getting stuff aligned across departments is itself a challenge. Then there are connections with the HVA, and I think as you also mentioned, the HVA is in a way, so the University of Applied Sciences here is in a way ahead of us also in this regard. So we've got some connection there. There's an Amsterdam's Akkoord Hoger Onderwijs, or Amsterdam Agreement for Higher Education, which actually is somewhat paused right now. And I think and
why is it paused?
Because the people that pulled it off have left, and so it's in a way lingering, waiting for some people. And, with regard to diversity, I think there's really, so we've got some informal connections with a free university, etc. Might be really good to get that energized again. As with regard to the professional schools and the MBO, I'm not aware of any connections there. Yeah. But it might be useful indeed also for them to get some support and for us, but that's not existing right now. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, great question.
I think it's maybe a missed opportunity so far. I think it's very valuable to see what we can do in that regard. I think it's very important to not just focus on the hogeschool and the university, but also like all of the schools. It's important. It's also in high schools, it's important to focus on that. Maybe even the elementary schools, just all places where you can get educated. I think it's important to show that diversity is not only normal, but also important and also celebrated. Yeah.
The ROCs, they have the GSA's, the Gender and Sexuality Alliance. Is there a connection possible with them? Maybe?
I mean, I'd say yes. I would say if there's something and if they're willing, then I'd say yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I know some schools, ROCs in Rotterdam. They ask me maybe we can make a connection because we have the GSA's and maybe there's something possible together. And so there is something at the ROCs, but yeah,
maybe we have a little help. Maybe they need a little help. Maybe if it's so that for example the HVA is more ahead, we could support them and we could help and educate. And I have some connections at HVA Pride. I could get the ball rolling. I mean,
And we would also welcome them as Workplace Pride members.
Yeah.
I mean, we just had in Utrecht both the university and the University of Applied Science signed up.
They're also all students, and at Student Pride in the Netherlands, we're there for all the students.
Yeah.
So not just hogeschool and university.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was a really, really good question. You see, yeah. And I see there's someone else with a question. I think the best place to stand is here because then can see your face. I saw that it was a little bit different.
Right in front of
Yeah, here. And then you can look to the. Oh, yeah, look around.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to hijack things here a little bit, but actually it's a suggestion as well as a question. I'm from Workplace Pride, and we have, some of you may know, the Declaration of Amsterdam. It is a document that's been around for 11 years that organizations, companies will sign as a sign of what they are aspire to do as far as LGBTI inclusion in the workplace is concerned. I'd like to suggest maybe we can think about a Purple Friday charter, something that all educational institutions can sign that will, from what I've heard here, it's quite a bit about awareness raising and communication. And there's plenty of people who want to work together. Clearly, it's wonderful how the conversation's developing here, but it's just a suggestion. And maybe Workplace Pride could play a role there to help bring some of this together. But I just wanted to put it out there and see what people thought.
Yeah, thank you so much. You will say something about that, I think.
No, I just want to say that sounds like a great idea. I'm really enthusiastic about that. I think as Student Pride, we could also play a role in that if that's I'm enthusiastic. Yeah.
So my response would be, so there are several other charters, and one of the main charters I think in the Netherlands is provided by the SER, the Socioeconomic Council. And what I also see is, so we before we had this conversation, like there are several days, and the risk of having kind of a pink or purple washing. So I'm always trying to find, like, can we then integrate this in something that many organizations, including universities, are already aligned to, and then make it much more inclusive in that sense. Because I'm a little bit wary of getting another thing that universities or schools are like confronted with. Should we do this as well, or is it kind of overlapping, etc.? So I'm all for getting this attention and to in a way draw up kind of lists, like what do we need you to fulfill, to comply with, if you're really like purple friendly.
Maybe just as an addendum to diversity policies,
Right,
just like in general, that could also have the same purpose.
Riona, how is it for you?
Well, what I've noticed is you don't want it to be just a signature on a paper. You want it to be able to leave the paper. You want it to be implemented. You want it to be in actions and in behavior and in
Be accountable.
exactly. It shouldn't just be another paper. But if there's a way to make a plan for that and to ensure things get done, sounds like a good plan.
And there is already a manifest that's many schools, many universities spoke with each other 2 years ago with COC and with Student Pride in Netherlands. And they made a manifest with 5 points. And that are the first 5 points where most of the students they think that's the best, when that's the first thing that can be implemented. So there's maybe a beginning with that, and we can do more with the manifest, maybe a second step.
Yes, with our study association, we're also working closely together with our city council, and we're one of their partners on the subject of, in Deventer for inclusion and diversity policies. And they've also talked about this, and are also thinking about what can we do to make sure this leaves the paper even more and things really get done.
Yeah.
And I think it's always a hard question, because a lot of people like to put a signature and make it look good, but then you also have to put your actions where your words are. And that's something harder to do for most people. But there should definitely be things to be done about that, and can be done about it, I think.
Yeah. We can start this day, I think. Yeah.
So talk about something practical. And that is, and then Michiel already kind of alluded to it, the all gender toilets. It's one of the 4 issues that were brought up, which are contentious issues for D&I, across the Netherlands, apparently at the universities. Can you tell us a little bit more? So first of all, how is it going at the University of Amsterdam? And And why is it so contentious? Now, I know a little bit myself from my own experience, and we had a prep talk.
Right. Yeah.
So I work for Elsevier, and at some point we decided the time was right for an all-gender toilet, and I had incredible pushback. And then we got one, which was also the toilet for people with disability. It's okay, interesting. But then when we opened the office again this year, we raised the discussion, and I was really going in like, I'm going to chain myself to the door at the opening. I'm done with these people. But they just said, all right, how many do you want? And I said, I want half. And they said, no problem. What do you want on the door? I said, all gender toilet. Okay. And then it was done. So I don't know, maybe the pandemic hit them or weakened them. I don't know. But sometimes, yeah, it's interesting how in the previous discussion, how strong the resistance was. And I'm sure they all went home and used their all gender toilet at home. Anyway, so how is it at the University of Amsterdam? Let's start with you, Michiel.
So I recognize a bit of your conversation. So it takes a while for people. So sometimes you really need to have some time and patience for pushing an agenda like this, for people to really get used to the idea that the situation as it is no longer complies with how people identify themselves, how they want to experience their work environment. But then the practical questions come. So previously I was faculty diversity officer at Faculty of Science, which is not typically like avant-garde in these issues, perhaps. So at first there was no gender-neutral toilet. Then after negotiations with the dean, he said, well, okay, you know what? We are going to make the accessible toilet, so the invalide toilet, as it is called in Dutch, we'll make on every floor at least one accessible or a gender neutral. And I try to like object to that, like, no, we don't want one minoritized group to like sacrifice or to make room for others, like but well, this is what I'm going to do, but you know what, I'm going to make a QR code in the toilet and people can like send their opinion on it. So that experiment is now running. This kind of a compromise. And then I also now, having moved to the central position, I discussed with the director of facility services, so who is like building and cleaning all the buildings. So, well, you know what, I am all for it, but I need some extra budget for building it or rebuilding it, cleaning, like, you know, it would have implications for the urinals, and every toilet now has to have a bin for dropping period products, etc. But so there are different, and then I got some pushback, as you mentioned, like particular colleagues and students pushing like, we don't want all toilets to be made gender neutral. So this is a kind of a process where both people have to get used, the cleaning routines have to be changed. So there's a lot going on. But generally, I think right now, every building has its gender neutral toilets, and maybe we want to push for another proportion, a larger of it. But I think there's really some ground broken here. Yeah.
Maybe
About the toilets.
Okay.
I want to say real quick. Oh no, am I going to forget what I was going to say? ADHD, everyone. I think it's also very important that not only is it there, but it should also be known. Because now I've studied at UvA for a couple of months now. I have no idea where they are, and it doesn't say it anywhere. You'd have to like stumble upon it by accident, and I think that's also a big part. And yeah, it's very important to not push for all toilets to be all gendered, because of course there's also people with certain religions that makes it so it's very uncomfortable for them to share a bathroom, and I think that's also something that should be respected, even though it's not something that I believe, but it doesn't mean that it should infringe upon theirs. Yeah,
Very clear.
Yeah, Christine, you have a question. No, not you, but someone. Yeah, of course.
Question from Julia van Kamp, TD Delft. What does the panel think of the idea to label toilets by just what is behind the door? For example, a pictogram or a toilet with a seat and or urinal, or is this a toilet with extra support? Seems like a solution that is very simple to implement.
So question from
Yeah, you can repeat and answer.
question from Julian van Kampen. What do we feel about the toilets where it's just a pictogram, when it just depicts what's behind the door? I think, well, so staying with the opinion that it shouldn't be all of them. Well, I mean, no, actually, no, that doesn't, no. If I want to be inclusive towards everyone, and there's people that are uncomfortable sharing bathrooms with people of opposite sex, I'd say that makes it a little bit harder. But for me personally, I'd say that's a great idea. It's what, if there's just a stall door, you can lock it. If you know what's behind there, I think that should be fine. But I'm not sure it's everyone is included in that. And I think that's something that we shouldn't forget, because it's easy to forget if that's not something we or I personally hold as a belief.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'm not in favor of that. I don't think that's really inclusive. As you mentioned before, there may be, for instance, people wearing headscarves who want to have really a private space to change their headscarf without someone of the opposite sex running in. But also people who have survived harassment, they have similar like reservations against that. So I would favor having added to the current system like gender neutral toilets, which means like we have at least like 3 categories probably.
Can I maybe switch gears a little bit and dive in on, and it, of course, it's again the gender topic. So, and Seven already alluded to it as well, right? You fill in a form and then you have to say, what is your gender, male, female, or what is your gender at birth versus what is your gender now? And we also hear it, for instance, you get your diploma, but it has not the name that, you know, which is your current name, but it has your name from the past or your legal name. So how are these issues dealt at, for instance, at Saxion or at the University of Amsterdam?
Well, at Saxion, there is an option to change the name you have in the schooling system, but how you can change it is not very talked about. So it's not very public knowledge. You really have to hear it from someone who knows, or you have to really dive deep on the website and see where it is. So it's not made very accessible. And that's why for a lot of people, it still goes wrong, because a lot of students still have their dead name in the schooling system because they don't know that they can change it. And a lot of teachers don't know that it can be changed. The same for example, pronouns. Not everybody knows you can put your pronouns in your email signature, or you can put your pronouns on other places. What at Saxion people are really fighting for is being able to put your pronouns in the Teams, Microsoft Teams, so that when you have a Teams meeting, it just states your name and your pronouns. A lot of people still don't know about all these options, and that's why it still goes wrong. But I also have heard from, for example, one of our members, they have their pronouns in their email signature, and still the teacher uses the wrong pronouns in the email for them, while it's just there sitting in the email signature. So I also think it's a lot of, maybe a little bit of not knowing what, who and what. So that's why maybe teachers still miss up there, but then again, education about it is very important, because I don't think a lot of teachers know the difference between sex and gender, for example, and a lot of people still don't really know that gender is a social construct, and it's not necessarily gender assigned at birth, but it's more so sex assigned at birth, and then gender is just a completely different topic. Still, a lot of people don't know about it. We've also seen it that, especially in the Netherlands, homosexuality is pretty accepted. Gender, on the other hand, there have been some studies. There's still a lot more queerphobia against gender topics. at this point in time in our society. So I think it's a very important topic to shine some light about, especially since it hasn't been talked about a lot.
And diplomas?
Well, diplomas in Saxion, you still have to put your official name on it.
Yeah.
And now one of our diversity officers has been working on getting a ceremonial diploma, so that you get your official diploma with your official name, registered with city council or whatever, and then you can have a ceremonial diploma with your chosen name.
Okay.
So that there's still a little bit about that. It's a good solution for a problem that maybe shouldn't exist in the first place. So, but people are working very hard for that.
Yeah, great.
Can I respond?
Yeah, please.
I had a similar experience at the HVA where I changed my name towards everyone, but I couldn't really find an option. It wasn't really accessible to me. I had not changed my email, which still had my dead name. And I think somehow it's just changed. Really weird, probably really weird exception just for me or something. Maybe someone did it for me. I don't know what happened there, but it wasn't really accessible to me. With my diploma, it had my dead name on it when I signed it, but my mentor made sure to not dead name me in the ceremony. Yeah. So that was really nice and personal. But then I came to the UvA, and they use a different it's called Canvas, different what's the word?
Electronic learning environment.
Yeah, learning environment. And not only was it very obvious or explicitly stated that I could change my name if I changed it in StudyLink, it immediately changed. I could add my pronouns right behind my name, so all the communication that goes through Canvas shows my good name and my pronouns. And it was also I was able to change my email address within 2 minutes.
Wow.
And I just
great.
looked it up and I immediately found it. So that was really, oh wow, that's maybe something in which the UvA is ahead of the HVA. So yeah, really different experiences there.
Well, I wonder then, what does it mean for you that these kind of solutions are so accessible?
For me personally, it's just really, it's a relief. It's great to know that I don't have to struggle about it. I don't have to personally tell all of my teachers, please don't name me in the way that it says in the system, but I have a different name. Or that my teachers can't fill in my grades for me because my name is different, which is a problem I had at the HVA. For me personally, it's just a lot less struggle, but on an institutional level, it feels like the school is with me or something. Oh, this is not even an issue. It's really accessible, means that it's also, it feels that it's also important to the UvA in this instance. And that makes me feel way more accepted as a student there.
I was actually reading a bit beforehand, and I think it was from Radboud University where they said, we use the legal name. If you want to change your name, you can go to the Stadhuis. And I was thinking, okay, that's an attitude. But
are you gonna fund it for me then?
Yeah, but it's so great to hear that at the University of Amsterdam, it's all enabled. Yeah.
Well, maybe, so I'm really glad to hear this. I'm a little bit proud, having nothing done to get to this point, I think. But so maybe a sobering note when it comes to diplomas, so the official certificates. I've had this conversation with our legal affairs departments. They say, well, the diploma has to reflect the legal name that's in the citizen archive. We cannot change that. So then I supported a proposal that ASFA, the student, the student union, the Amsterdam Student Union, has proposed also to the HVA to at least have a kind of a ceremonial certificate. And now they're
like at Saxion, yeah.
Right. And now they're discussing that option, which seems apparently more complex than I would think. But at least for now, the instruction to during the ceremony, have people refer to by the announcements, etc., with a living name. That's been adjusted already. So it's going baby steps, perhaps. Yeah.
You know what they say, if you want something not to happen, you should ask for legal advice.
Yeah, we have still 5 minutes, and there's a question I heard. So, Christine.
Yeah, that's a little bit a question from Heather, but it's not related to the subject
Ah,
that we're
okay.
talking about right now.
We can answer her after the show. I think that's after the show. Yeah, then we can give her. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Are there people in the here who have a last question? No? Very quiet, everyone. Yeah. Okay.
That's okay.
She's asking, we have some industries and jobs where very little diversity and maybe hard to be out. Knowing that there is a huge number of people who are out at the university and then go back in the closet when they start working. Are there any efforts to forward DEI, specifically in these faculty subjects that are typically the pipeline for these industries and jobs?
Good question.
Can you repeat the question?
I can repeat the question very shortly. There are some companies where it's very tough to be yourself, and
To not go back into the
sorry. So what can we do that people don't have to go back to the closet when they are will going to work? When they graduate. What can we do with that? What are your advice?
Is an answer you already?
Of course, it's not the fault of the student that they get back into the closet after they leave school when they start working. But what could help is already focusing on being strong, being confident in who you are, focusing on self-development. So when you leave your education and you go into the working force, you already have all the tools in your belt to stay strong and be yourself. But then again, that's just a little part of it. I think a big part of it is also making sure that companies know that this is something that happens, to talk about it already in the education. Like the question stated, education is the pipeline for these companies. Like they get, the education makes their employees. So if you already focus on it in education, make sure it's stated, it's noted, people know about it. It could already help a little bit.
There's also a lot of organizations that work together with the schools for like internships and such, and maybe it's a good thing for the schools to assert certain values in that. If we were to work together, we do want to ensure that if our students eventually end up working for you, they are in a safe working environment. So maybe like a clause somewhere in that could also really help.
Sorry. Yeah, I may add, added also to what Rihanna just said. We've got a mentoring program for our master students, like with first generation background, who are coupled with a mentor from the field where they were like lawyers or doctors or whatever. And I could imagine maybe like a Workplace Pride can play a role here, that students who are about to enter the job market are like getting some kind of a support, where whenever they enter, they know how to operate and what language to use, and maybe also to network.
Chantal.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting, but we have to go to the last part, and that is Guy. Guy is busy with his drawings, and can we see something about that now, or can we? Yeah.
Here I am. Hi. Yeah. Oh, it was so interesting, everybody. Thank you so much for this inspiring webinar. I must admit that I was so occupied in hearing all of the topics and visualize them, that they are not in place yet, but I will show what I've got. So don't worry, I'll give you a beautiful visualization. Can you see something?
Not yet. But we try. Yes,
okay.
yes. Oh, very good,
So,
very good. Yes.
I learned the lesson today. It's good to prep. But as you can see, it was much more organic. So you went from topic to topic. So I let go my my idea of the separate interviews. What I have drawn for so far is that you all shared your experiences on Purple Friday, that it's about support acceptance, training, more awareness. But there was also a critical note. This is a sketch, but there's also a critical note and yeah, maybe a warning that that there's in some cases you can speak of rainbow washing. A very important topic I heard was that it's a very good opportunity for you guys to collab more, to team up. There were yeah, you made examples about LOC and HVA, but there were more. So in some schools there's more acceptance than in other schools. So you can learn from each other and you don't have to invent the wheel all over again. But what I thought was very beautiful that someone said, well, maybe we should start today. So I will yeah, visualize that even more. You talked about yeah, a manifest. So you can collect the same goals and but there's also a warning that you don't want to be it just your signature, but also that it leaves the paper and it's more action based. So that's why I put this yeah, this arrow. Hey, it's action based. It's one goal, but I will make a visualization that it's not only on paper, but you're into the action. Then you had a larger conversation
We have
about
to go to an end. I'm
I'm
so sorry, guys.
Oh no,
Are you?
I'm sorry.
You can
Yeah,
say a
yeah,
last important topic,
okay.
and then we have to end. I'm so sorry. I'm so
No,
sorry.
it's
Can you say
okay.
the last important
No.
topic?
Yeah, but I say don't invent things on your own, but collaborate, team up, start today, because you're. I think when you do it together, you'll can change. I think the world. So many good luck to you guys, and I'll make a beautiful picture.
Thank you
of
so
course.
much. And we can see his drawings after the show,
Yeah,
and we will
yes, of
share it with
course.
everyone. So thank you so much. Yeah, and we have yeah to say thank you.
Yes,
to,
big thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
yeah,
Maybe a
and
round
maybe
of applause.
You can, yeah. Yeah, and also the people at home, thank you for watching us. Riona, Michiel, Seven. And we will share the video, of course. The drawings, pictures. Next week, you can find everything. And yeah, we are very happy that you are all here. So thank you so much.
Thank you.